do you have any other advice for our adoptive families who might be in that stage of they've just welcomed a child into their home, or they might be waiting and it's soon to come that they are welcoming a child from another country in their home? What advice would you give them?
Yes. Well, first, every child's different. So I was a little bit more shy, but but the more I hung out with you, the more I poured myself into you. So, but I would just like show them the kids love movies, toys, um, but I guess, don't let them know that they are different. Just act like this was like natural from the beginning.
Mm, that's really good advice, Manuel. I think sometimes on my side of things, and you kind of hear the experts, and I'm using quotations, listeners, if you're not watching on YouTube, the experts are divided on that of
Hmm.
how, and so sometimes us as adoptive parents, we walk on eggshells because we're so afraid to do something wrong
Hmm.
because we've loved you from the moment that the Lord placed you on our hearts, just like biological children. And so for us, and I can say this for my daughter, and she looks nothing like me, I
Yes.
get that I did not give birth to her, but sometimes that is frowned upon. Do you want to
Mm.
speak to that a little bit?
Well, the way I think about it is like, yes, I can sometimes go into that area where I notice like I'm a different color than them, but I don't let myself live in there because I think that's from the enemy to
Yeah,
live there. And
yeah,
so there's a lot of similarities. There's actually more than differences. And so that's why, if like, obviously I've thought of it like I don't look anything like them, but I don't live in that area.
yeah. So that's a conscious choice that you've made.
Yes. Hmm.
That is, I think that's really, really helpful for our kids because our goal as families is just to thrive together. And
Yes.
ultimately, and I think something, and I want to invite you to speak into this too, is the Lord places families together.
Hmm.
And for various reasons, and it's all a part of his perfect plan. But you're right, the enemy does infiltrate, and I think he accuses and he makes everybody feel uncomfortable, like, oh, there's something
Yes.
I should be upset about. And yes, there is grief, and yes, there's trauma related to an original family not being able to be together, but there's also the goodness of God that adoptive families can come together. What would you say to
Hmm.
all of that, Emmanuel?
Well, what I would say is you just gotta first you gotta pray before you do it because it is a big step,
Yeah,
and not everybody's called to adopt, but there's ways you can give without even adopting because that's a big, big step.
yeah,
And so, if there is any like where hesitations, just give to these organizations
yeah,
that help with orphanages. So,
yeah.
but yeah, basically it's different for every child, so there's not a perfect answer for that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And I think that's the important thing is knowing your child and taking the
Hmm.
time. I love you talking about quality time. And what you're talking about is very simple. Just welcoming children into the rhythms of life that
Yes.
you've already established. And however, they've come from other rhythms. And so how can we still honor the culture and the heritage and the family of origin as adoptive families and to help the child feel that that part of their story is not over. It's just adding to a new part of their story.
Mm. Yes, so like I said, when I watched the Jungle Book, I was like, I kind of was Mowgli
Yeah,
in Haiti. So like it was like a jungle to me, it felt like. So
sure.
that kind of took me back. And then just, you can have like the food, that Haitian food if you want, which I don't have anymore. I just say I'm American, Haitian
Sure.
American. But um, if you're feeling called to keep those roots, then you can. I'm sure there's ways, especially with the internet, you can find how to make certain foods
Yeah.
or certain clothing. But yes, I just say I'm American, Haitian, and I'm Haitian American. So, but yeah.
That's awesome. Again, very practical. And I love your suggestion of, hey, let's look up some recipes and make some meals
Hmm.
together. And then that's quality time. So
Yes.
you're celebrating heritage and you're learning something new and then you're spending time together. I think that's a really, really sweet and practical way. And I love your suggestion of movies and books. Books are
Hmm.
such a huge part. And so I'm thinking through, your story. What are you hoping for our parents who go out and they grab this book and they're reading it to their kids, whether they're foster kids, whether they have been adopted into the family? What are you hoping that this book will accomplish for them?
Well, what I said before is that they know that they are a part of a plan. Just because you're adopted or you look different, doesn't matter that this what there is purpose for you, and that Jesus has always had a plan for your life.
Mm, that's so good, Emmanuel. I want to ask the question because I know that we have families who struggle with kiddos who they're not celebrating that. They don't
Hmm.
celebrate their adoption. They might be angry. They might still really be deep in that grief process. How would you encourage those kids and those parents to love their kids well while they're walking through that period or that season of not celebrating the fact that they are adopted?
Wow, it's tough because that's not my situation at all.
Yeah.
But I would just tell them like you just keep praying and obviously maybe give them some space depending how old they are. But
Yeah.
none of that should be a problem if the beginning parts you did that right, like as an adopted parents.
Okay.
So so if you let them do anything just because they're adopted, that's you can't do that.
Mm,
But you just gotta find a balance, I guess. So
yeah. That's really
it's
good.
hard,
It
but
is. Yeah, because you're talking about, I think, providing structure and, like we talked about, welcoming family or welcoming kids into the rhythm of a new family. And I appreciate you saying that. You can't just let them run amok and even run
yes.
wild with negative thinking. You
Hmm.
have to intervene on their behalf, not because you're trying to force something on them, but because you're wanting better for them. So
Hmm.
I love you say that we pray and that we provide that balance of structure. And that's what we try to do on the show is give those little snippets episode by episode of ways that our parents can do that. So I just appreciate you
Yes.
backing me up on that, Emmanuel. That's
Oh,
helpful.
yes.